Our esteemed president, he was in Arizona last night, and I had a chance to cover him in Arizona when he was there. And I will say that for having covered Trump and Sanders and all the other candidates, the places where both Trump and Sanders seem to attract to me the most memorable crowds in both their fervor and their excitement was curiously Arizona. So it doesn't surprise me that the night after giving what was supposed to be a somber and important speech with some details, but mostly lacking any details on Afghanistan, whether there will be a surge or not, the president then sort of did a pivot back to what we came to know as campaigning Donald Trump. This is his favorite venue. He can say whatever he wants to a crowd that will accept him for whatever he says. It was no different in Phoenix last night. Here is your president, Donald Trump.
You know, I'd love if the cameras could show this crowd because it is rather incredible. It is incredible. It is incredible. As everybody here remembers, this was the scene of my first rally speech, right? The crowds were so big, almost as big as tonight, that the people said right at the beginning, you know, there's something special happening here. How about all week they're talking about the massive crowds that are going to be outside? Where are they? Well, it's hot out. It is hot. I think it's too warm. You know, they show up in the helmets and the black masks, and they've got clubs and they've got everything. Antifa!
This is the off-the-cuff, freewheeling Donald Trump. Nomi Jank, I want to show you, before we get into this discussion about what we just listened to, the crowds. He was talking about how these crowds almost bigger than when he was first here. Let's see that, Mr. President. Yeah. Almost bigger. That was the empty back of the arena where he was speaking. You know, I think that this is clearly a place where he is most comfortable. The night before, less than 24 hours earlier, he opened his speech on foreign policy by saying, we have to come together as one. We are one people. We are one country. It was a segue out of the Charlottesville talk and into talking about what we need to do in Afghanistan. A different guy showed up the next night.
Yeah, of course. Well, look, when he was doing the Afghanistan speech, I kept mocking him for being on the prompter. And it's not because, like the Republicans with Obama, they discovered a thing called the teleprompter. And they're like, oh my God, it turns out the president's reading. Yeah, I know. They've been doing it a long time. It's just that it's particularly stark with Trump because when he's not reading, it's obvious. He wasn't reading today, it wasn't on a prompter. And part of why the crowd loved it so much. So it's got a huge downside because the downside is that you get to hear what Trump actually thinks. The upside is that his crowd loves it. I mean, the guy's a classic carnival barker. So when he's like, Antifa! I feel like I'm in I feel like I'm in WWE, WrestleMania 27, right?
But you know, if you were out there and you've both been around these Trump people, I don't believe that they know what Antifa is.
No.
I think they just want to listen to this guy vamp, and that's
it. I think that's interesting because if this were Hillary people, he was screaming Hillary people. Right. It would actually help him. But Antifa, his people don't really know what Antifa is. The Antifa people are going to feel more fueled. In fact, I think more people are joining Antifa. I think he's so unfamiliar with the alt left, as Neera Tanden likes to call it, and Joy Reid likes to call it, and Donald Trump likes to call it. He's so unfamiliar with that populist left that didn't go to his side that he actually might be fueling the fire that could take him down eventually. And furthermore, if this is his base, if Arizona is like his loyal base and that was his crowd in Arizona, I would be worried if I were Donald Trump. Because that was a convention center, that was not a stadium.
Right.
I've lived in Arizona. That is not a large place to give a rally. So he should be very concerned about his support at this point.
US presidents, whoever they've been, certainly in my life, in my conscious life, wherever they go, they draw a crowd. It's not unusual to see a US president draw a huge crowd when he goes on the road. He just turns them into rallies and campaign speeches.
Yeah, and look, and it's kind of entertaining to watch Trump. I'll give him that, and that's why The Apprentice rated well for a long time. So that's why it's perfectly normal for a big crowd to show up there and get super excited.
Yeah.
And look, Antifa's not going to bring him down. And Antifa's not a real enough force to have political consequence. And so if you guys are mad at me for saying that, God bless, go forward on that. But Nomi's right that the more you mention them, the bigger they'll grow. So Trump calling them out, going, Antifa!
Yeah, it was
just
Do a
only going to
video.
help them.
completely.
Someone meme that or do a GIF or something. Do that, Antifa.
Right, and he's speaking to the people. I'm going to skip to, this is Chris Pickell saying, President Trump flat lying about NewsWorks turning off live cameras as he complains about fake news. And so what happened last night was the president said to everybody, hey, pointing to the news, nobody watches TV anymore. Nobody watches these people. No, they're all a bunch of liars. Meanwhile, everybody who's hearing about it is watching it on television or watching it somehow. The news continues to show this president.
So he's rewritten a lot of the rules, sometimes for the good, but almost never. Right. So, and here's another rewritten rule. Like it used to be a thing like, hey, you don't want your lie to be too brazen or obvious. Politicians lie all the time, but they have subtle, nuanced ways of lying. Trump is just like, CNN just turned off their cameras. First of all, how would he know that? He's in the middle of the speech, right? Like what a bizarre thing to make up. Second of all, they didn't. It's enormously provable whether they turned off the cameras or not.
Yeah.
He just doesn't care as long as it gets a good line, good applause there in the crowd.
It may be, but it's also, sometimes he's speaking to the audience on camera, which still, do they not realize they're watching CNN? Are they watching Fox News?
Well, that's the thing. I think so many of them are watching this on Fox, and then a handful of them are in that hall. They all think he's telling them the truth. That's all they need to hear.
I'll go one step further. I guarantee you that if you polled Trump viewers who are watching him
CNN.
on CNN, did CNN turn off the cameras, half of them would say
Right, yes, they did. I was watching, it just went right off. So that was the blatant, right? Then there was the subtle lying, the subtle falsities. Let's go listen to the president talking. He was trying to prove to this crowd that he had empathy for what was going on in Charlottesville when it happened, that the remarks he gave afterwards were by this fake news media, by these horrible people in the middle of that hall, that they were misconstrued somehow. So he went to clarify the record, Donald Trump.
So what I did, I'm really doing this to show you how damn dishonest these people are. So here's what I said, really fast. Here's what I said on Saturday. We're closely following the terrible events unfolding in Charlottesville, Virginia. This is me speaking. We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. That's me speaking on Saturday, right after the event.
That's not a lie. Nomi, Cenk, I mean, that's what he said.
That's true.
That's what he said. Let's hear what else he had to say.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
It seems like he left out a phrase there when he was repeating it to the crowd.
Yeah, JR, you think that was an accident?
I didn't hear anything different. What are you guys talking about?
No.
I was in the crowd in Phoenix and there was something that swept over us.
You must have been watching CNN. That's what happened to you. Yeah, and that's what he does. So for this audience, the ones that are sitting at home watching Fox, the ones that are in that hall, he can go on the air and say, this is what I read. Doesn't it sound perfect? That wasn't what was controversial. If he had stopped right there, probably wouldn't have been talked about as much. Certainly wouldn't have been.
So, look, we've shown poll after poll, even after Charlottesville, 67% of Republicans thought that his reaction was perfectly fine. That's amazing. And so, of course, if he cherry picks one sentence where he denounces Nazis, people go, look at the fake news media criticizing him even though he criticized Nazis. if you try to explain to those folks, but he also said that both sides were at fault when one side was Nazis and the other side was people protesting Nazis. When one side got killed and the other side didn't, you're like, nuance. I don't do nuance.
Yeah.
Antifa.
Politically correct. You guys are so politically correct with your numbers. Oh my God. Well, I mean, does this work though in terms of calling out his strategy? I think it works for like the sane people who are watching us, who are watching, mainstream media, whatever you want to call it. But does it work for the Trump base? Like, his numbers are going down.
They are going down, and significantly.
Crazy people are going up.
It's not insignificant, and they're not necessarily going down for the reasons we would think. They're not going down because we keep reminding them what a fool this man can be. They had a whole election campaign to learn that, but they're going down because a lot of Republicans are starting to turn on the president, and I think also because the more that people hear that important people are leaving the reservation, that has an impact on some Republicans.
I'm not sure about that. And I just saw
what are
Morning
you sure
Consult
about?
poll where his numbers went back up this week, and they have him all the way at 44%. So
was that taken after the Afghanistan speech?
Yeah. No, it was taken throughout the week. So some of it didn't even get all of the Charlottesville response in it. To be fair, but. So I don't think that people care about important Republicans leaving. I think they kind of hate important Republicans.
No, I think the Republicans that voted for him with reluctantly, I think that matters to them, and there were enough of them that it put him over. I mean,
and it might have an effect on, if there's this psychological effect of so many Republicans that are lockstep Republicans, distancing themselves from Trump, and he's firing people left and right. It's that security within the Republican Party. They would rather have the Republican Party secure to defeat the Democrats and Antifa and Bernie Sanders than, keep Trump.
So here's my sense of it. I think that the crowd. And I don't mean just the crowd in Arizona, I mean his base loves this stuff. They like that he's entertaining, they consider this honest. It's that great Rand Paul line that he told me, I don't know why he's never said it on TV, but where he said Trump's got the truth telling without the truth. It has the appearance of truth telling, let me tell you how it is, okay? And he's not talking like a standard politician. And then he'll just give you one lie after another, which is.
But it's the audience too, Cenk. It's the people, because to be fair, most politicians, presidents, people that we've looked at through these same glasses, they also tell the truth without telling the truth. I mean, there are lots of obfuscations and lies and all of that.
But they look fake doing it,
but his
Michael,
audience,
and it's a giant difference.
I don't think so, because we've fallen for it for years and years, generations and generations.
Well, we're done with it.
This is a different audience that's falling for it. Now, we're not done with it because look who won. I mean, we're not done with it at all.
But they don't also believe him either. I mean, there's been polling out saying, do you believe what Donald Trump says?
They sort of don't care.
And they're like, no, but we don't care because
it's
he's
a cult of
draining
personality,
the swamp, or whatever.
I know, but guys, that's what I'm talking about. I don't mean we're done with the lying. I mean, this guy perfected it in a sense. I mean, we're done with the fake, like the polished, well, I do declare this is how we're going to be, and we're the honorable gentleman from Connecticut and Nebraska. Right. People hate it. They hate it. That's the only reason Trump is popular, is because he's the opposite of that. So, a lot of people are criticizing this speech vociferously, and we have our own criticism, obviously, including that he's making stuff up. But overall, I thought it was an effective speech to keep his base.
Well, speeches like this are how he won the presidency. So everybody who says they're not effective is wrong, because he's the president, and this is what he did constantly during the election. And I don't think that you're right. I find the Trump presidency will be an anomaly, not a norm. I find that his success was based largely on his celebrity and the cult of personality, and once he goes away, so too will that, and there will be a return to something that was more similar to the I do declare than to this guy. Yeah. I think
we totally disagree on that, but that's okay.
That's fine. And I don't think we're going to get an I do declare all the time.
We've got a lot of them, guys. We've got a lot of them left.
And most of the people are, because that's the discipline. The discipline is I do declare.
TYT membership gets you commercial-free Young Turks. Download it, stream it, podcast it, get all the network shows, and support independent media. TYTnetwork.com/join.